All right, joined now by our longtime friend, Kevin McNamara. We're going to talk about an array of things. Kevin, I want to start with the Celtics. They begin their playoff series with the Sixers. Earlier in the show, we heard about how the team still respects them despite no Ben Simmons. But that is locker room talk, I guess you could say. Is this going to be a one-sided series, or do you think it'll be pretty competitive?
Well, I think it all really hinges on Joel Embiid. He's a matchup nightmare for the Celtics. Daniel Tice is just a very different type of big guy and presents real challenges in a matchup with Embiid, who's offensively as talented as any big guy in the league. And this is the first playoff series where Al Horford has a chance to go at the Celtics.
Right.
So the combination of Horford and Embiid, they could definitely present some problems.
What do you make of usually, like, let's ratchet up the intensity? It's the playoffs. They're playing in the same building they've been playing in. There's no home court advantage. There's no travel. How are teams going to figure out how to increase that intensity? And do you think Brad Stevens will have his guys right in that perspective?
No, I think getting off to a good start in any series, whether it's the Celtics and Sixers or anyone out west, is really important because, think about it. If you go on the road to start and you've split or even go down, two, the quote series doesn't start until you lose one at home. Well, now no one's at home. So
Right.
I think to dig out of a hole after a bad start in a series is really going to be problematic.
All right, I want to switch gears to another playoff series. That would be the Bruins. And I want to just ask you about Tuukka Rask. I think everyone had the same reaction Saturday about an hour before puck drop. Tuukka Rask opting out, just wow. Today, Bruce Cassidy didn't necessarily rule out him potentially coming back because the NHL allows for that. But let's just assume he's done. What was your reaction to him leaving once the playoffs had already started?
Yeah, I think the timing is really curious. He cites excellent reasons for opting out. I totally get it. I don't fault him for it, but his timing is just awful. How he didn't come to this conclusion a week ago, several weeks ago, because he's certainly been away from his young family, 3 little kids. Again, totally understand, but he's definitely letting his teammates down. And, Halak is a very good backup goaltender. The issue is obviously who backs him up.
Right.
Yianni, you're going to have to help me with his backups because I have no idea who they are, and I don't think any Bruins fans know who they are.
Vladar is one, but they may be calling you or me to be doing that.
Yeah.
All right, let's talk about the Red Sox. Just a terrible losing streak here with the Rays and Yankees. They're playing sub-300 winning percentage ball. How damaging is this to the Red Sox brand when you consider a year and a half ago they had won 100 and whatever it was, 8 games and were historically good? How quickly they've fallen in a time when baseball is losing a lot of fans.
Well, it's 100,000% on the ownership. We heard back in, when Shane Bloom came in that he was giving a different financial, challenge, not going to be over the salary cap, etc. Well, fine. This is what you signed up for. No minor league talent to think of, especially on the pitching side.
Right.
And then everyone says, well, they've had a couple injuries. This is baseball. You always get injuries. Now, obviously, when you lose a Chris Sale, that's a monstrous injury. Rodriguez as well is just, those are 2 huge pieces of the team. But this team is unwatchable. I mean,
it's bad.
We've been waiting months for sports to be on television, and thank God the basketball and NHL are up and running in August, because if it was just the Red Sox, I think I'd just keep playing golf.
I know, and as I said, they're playing in all these nationally televised games, and the whole country can see how bad they're doing. The Patriots get into pads on Monday. Some media will be able to be there, and it'll sort of be what traditional training camp looks like starting tomorrow. Obviously, the big question is at quarterback, all the guys that opted out. Where do you see the Patriots as we head into this next phase of their training camp on Monday?
Well, it's too bad that we can't be at camp every day like we have for years and years, Yianni, because usually in most Patriots training camps, you barely look at Tom Brady. He's the quarterback. He's fine. You kind of look at everything else. What receivers are mixing with Tom Brady? Well, now the focus is 100,000% on the quarterback position. I think Cam Newton, as long as He handles things well. Is the likely week 1 starter. I'd love to know how they're going to assess, him versus Stidham with no preseason games,
Right.
no scrimmages. I just think the safest play is to go with Cam as long as he's, up to speed with the playbook and with the offense. But boy, I'd love to be able to look at both of those two guys day after day like we have, again, for years, but not going to be able to do that this year.
I asked Gresh this the other day. I want your answer. For so many years, because they had Tom Brady, they would be able to mask so many deficiencies in a roster or talent standpoint. Let's say they get B minus quarterback play, whatever they get from Stidham or Newton. Is the roster good enough around whoever's playing quarterback that this team can win, 10 games? Will Belichick be able to scheme it up enough to make this team a playoff team?
Well, it's funny that's what people are spinning at. That obviously issues at quarterback, issues at receiver and tight end, and then the opt-outs, some huge opt-outs on the defensive side of the ball. Last year the defense kind of carried the slumping offense through most of the year, and this year, without a high tower, without a few more key players on defense, the biggest strength of the team is the coaching staff. Well, I mean. Really? I mean, I know obviously he's the best and has some great assistant coaches, but I'd rather have a few more horses. So I think it'll be really interesting to see where the Patriots are after maybe a month of the season. Knock on wood that there will be the start of an NFL season.
And I want to switch gears again to college. You cover college basketball closely, but first with college football, we know the Big Ten and the Pac-12 are out. SEC, Big 12, ACC holding standing pat right now, trying to have a season. Do you think those conferences will be playing come September?
I don't, and I really, really hope I'm wrong. If we don't see any college football, I think that really pushes off the chance of any college basketball to the back burner. Maybe January 1st at the earliest. I do think that if the ACC and the SEC and the Big 12 get things going, by late September and are okay, then I think college basketball has a chance to get started at a reasonable time. I have a hard time believing that college basketball teams will be able to play 28, 30 games. The Friars, for example, are supposed to play in the Maui Classic. That has not been canceled yet, for example.
Wow.
But they need college football to have some success in order to be able to start on time.
So, people you talk to, what are you hearing in terms of college basketball? Is January 1st just conference games probably the likely outcome here?
Yes, that's exactly what people are. I think, again, very few people think that there's going to be 30 games. Most people do think that there will be some type of an NCAA tournament. Dan Gavitt, who we all know runs the tournament, has been outspoken about that. And he says there's 5, 6, 10 different varieties of what an NCAA tournament could look like. Wow. And it may not be in March, it may not be in April, but they know how important it is to have an NCAA tournament, not only financially, but that would be 2 straight NCAA tournaments. Where college football, they had their fun and games. So maybe it's their turn to feel some pain, and hopefully college basketball gets to enjoy some type of a season.
How much merit do you put into that report that the Big East is considering a bubble?
Well, Kevin Willard from Seton Hall had an interesting idea. Most of these schools are going back in August and sending their kids home at Thanksgiving time. So there could be a 5, 6, 8-week period between Thanksgiving and the start of the second semester where the only kids on campus are the athletes. At a Providence, men's and women's basketball, maybe that's it. There's your bubble, and if everyone else in the Northeast, in the Big East, the St. John's and the Connecticut's and the Seton Halls comes to Providence or comes to New Jersey, or they just take a bus and it's a bus league, you're up and back in the same day. That bubble type atmosphere could work. Now, how many games can you get out of that? Maybe when the kids come back, the students come back in January, you put it on ice for another month and you try again in late. who knows? We just don't know what the spread of COVID would be with so many kids on campus. And in the middle of flu season is really when basketball tries to play the majority of their games.
So like everything, it's just sit and wait, and we'll have to see if college basketball happens in some capacity. All right, Kevin McNamara, thanks so much for joining us, touching on an array of subjects tonight, and we'll talk again soon.
Great. Thanks, Yianni.